Alright, we got something new to mess with. I just got a hold of a Topdon Phoenix scope. From what I understand, there's other versions of this with other Chinese tools, but I like the Topdon stuff because the US support's awesome, and I know the guys over there, they take care of everything pretty well. So I got a hold of one of these, so we're just going to look at what it comes with, and then I'm going to set it up and do some playing and see what we can do with it. So I did take this out of the original box, and I wanted to check something because it doesn't list it on here very well or at all. But just like the MT Pro and many other oscilloscopes, all the grounds are bussed together. So again, you only need a single grounding point. Always best practice is just ground it at the battery negative. That way you have a 0-point reference or a low reference. So we're going to get into looking at this, but what it comes with is a bunch of alligator clips, these back probes. I took a look at these. These are really heavy duty. I wouldn't be jamming these into automotive connectors, maybe big old school connectors, but don't ruin anything with these. They're nice, but way more than you need, and they're really too big a gauge to be putting them into modern connectors, so don't ruin anything with those. Also comes with just a set of banana leads, BNC to banana, which is nice. Comes with 2 sets of those. I actually have the other set out. I did do a little bit of playing with it. I just wanted to see what it was going to do before I started making videos and make sure we didn't have any problems like plugging the thing in. This is a Topdon scanner that I use currently, the Phoenix Lite 3. So that scope works with all the Topdon Phoenix tools. Comes with a pretty nice USB cable. What I like about it is it's got this extra shoulder on it. And if you look at the tool, there's actually support so you don't break your USB port off, so that's kind of nice. And it's got a nice little cooling fan in it, which is also pretty cool. And then the other thing it comes with, which is kind of overkill because this is set up more like a lab oscilloscope, but it comes with these 10x P130A probes, but these are a 10x probe, which this style inductive probe, it's a passive probe, but it has to be tuned properly. It does come with instructions, so it's not rocket science, and that's actually what these ports here are for. So it even tells you what it is. It's a 1000 hertz signal at 2 volts peak to peak, so you can dial that in if you want to use those. Really, if you're going to be doing any high voltage testing, anything over, say, 100 volts, just get yourself a 10-to-1 attenuator or a 20-to-1 attenuator. It's going to work better for automotive applications. But you can make these work. You can, cobble together some leads and dial it in, and it's going to work really well, and it's going to be super safe because these are not, they're 10x, so they're going to be way removed from putting any high voltage through your scope. So those are definitely safe to use, just not super practical. But let's get into hooking it up and using it. So first thing I noticed when I plugged it in, which I think is pretty cool, it is kind of rattly. I don't know why, but it does work, so I don't really care. So we're gonna plug that in there. Yeah. Do this one-handed. Got it in there like that. And I do like that the BNCs are protected, so you could really drop this thing as long as you don't have leads on it, and you probably wouldn't hurt it. But yeah, it's an expensive tool. Don't drop it. Be nice to it. The regular USB port just plugs right into the tool up here. And what I noticed the first time I plugged it in is it just loads up the screen, which is really nice. So it just loads your software for you, ready to go. It's kind of silly that the green light that lets you know it's working, and it stops flashing when you stop the recorder is on the bottom. I would use it like this, so your fan's got plenty of airflow, and you've got channels 1 through 4 here. So, you know, it's kind of silly that it's upside down, but I would use it upside down. Just, you know, if you're going to use this tool for extended periods of time, it might overheat. I don't know, but I like to let the fans get as much airflow as possible. Also, you know, it's super technical and kind of unnecessary, but believe it or not, you're supposed to let your oscilloscopes warm up. So now we're going to pull a car in and do some testing and see what kind of waveforms we can get on the screen. Alright, well, we've got it set up. There's my ground. I know I said ground at the battery, but the battery's in the back seat on this car, so we're gonna have to settle for that. We're only running one trace anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I just want to show you guys getting battery voltage on the scope. So there's our battery voltage, and we're set at around 200 milliseconds per division, so you can see it's a 2-second buffer. I'm going to show you how we're going to manipulate our sample rates, and then I'm going to show you why we're going to manipulate our sample rates. So the first thing I want to show you guys is up here in the upper left hand corner, it tells you what channel you're on based on the color, and then it shows your buffer size and your sample rate. So you can see we're at I don't know if we get that but I've got it set pretty low, so we're at 2,500 samples per second and a 50,000 sample buffer. But if we hit menu, go over to user set, we can set this as high as 50 million samples in a buffer, and it says 10 million, but that changes based on your time base. So depending on your time set per division, your sample rate's going to change because you're looking at the whole buffer all the time. So right now we've got a 2-second buffer, which gives us a 25. So we can get that to focus. 25 million samples per second, which is way more than we're ever really going to need. Some of you guys will need a super high sample rate, but that's more than we're going to need, and I'm going to show you why. So we're going to go ahead and back this out so we have a reasonable sized buffer. I like to do 50 seconds, and that's going to drop us down to 1 million samples per second, which is still pretty high, right? So we've got 50 seconds or just under a minute on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and start the vehicle and let it idle, and we can see what that looks like. So you can see what that looks like. It's pretty noisy, but you got to remember, we're looking at, you know, not 30 seconds right here. So after it idles for a few seconds, we're going to go ahead and stop the file. I'm going to go shut the vehicle off. We're going to take a look at that, and then I'll show you why the sample rates matter so much. So you can see how noisy that signal looks. Let's zoom in. So we're going to go up here, hit zoom. And this is our zoom graph up here. We can drag this over to where our signal is, and then we can zoom in. You can see how noisy that signal is. And I mean, it's still usable. And I'll show you guys, we put some cursors out, and we'll bring our cursor down to our minimum voltage, and bring our other cursor so you can see our starting voltage. And there's our measure block. So we're at 12.17, and 7 drop down to 7.1, 5 volts a drop. So we know this is a fairly discharged battery. And actually we could probably go get rid of the noise and go up. And we're about 4 volts on our difference, or our delta between the two. So now let's do this at a lower sample rate so you can see how much nicer this looks. So we're going to go ahead and zoom out. so you can see what that looks like, right? And you can see there's definitely going to be some noise here. You know, we got some coil noise or injector noise or something going on, but I'm not really worried about that. So let's leave our time frame the same. So let's zoom out. We're at a 5-second per division time frame. Okay. Now we're just going to go to our menu, user set again, and we're going to go down to the 50 and 10. Okay. So that's 50,000 samples for the whole window. And we're going to go ahead and start that again. And you can see our sample rate's significantly lower. So we're at 1,000 samples per second, and a 50,000 sample buffer gives us 50 seconds of time on our buffer. And we're going to go ahead and start the vehicle, get the same waveform. Sorry about all the focus issues. I'm just having trouble getting focused on that screen, but we're going to play with this scope quite a bit here, so I'm going to make a few videos on it showing you what it can do. I like the Light 3 as a scanner, so anytime I have the scanner out, I'm going to be using this scope. So there's our starting event. We're going to go ahead and stop it, and we'll shut the vehicle off. Open and shut the door, make sure the car shuts off. And we're going to go back to this, and you can already see this is looking much cleaner, right? So now we're going to hit our zoom. We're going to pick our signal. We're going to zoom in a little bit. Oops. Get back there. There we go. We can zoom out just a hair. So now we can take our cursors, set them where they need to be at a much lower sample rate. Now you can see our measurements, if it'll focus. 12.17, 8 volts minimum and 4.1 volts drop. And we can see the noise if we zoom in. We can see the noise on our starter. If we had the sample rate a little higher, we could actually see the drop, as you know, or the noise that's being created by the starter motor. But really, for better definition, we should be using an amp clamp for that. So, and I just want to show you what our alternator looks like in this mode. Now, if we wanted to get a better look at this, we'd have to AC couple it. But you can see that we do get a fair amount of definition. But you can see how much cleaner the slower starter waveform is at the lower sample rate. So I just want to demonstrate how to turn those sample rates down. We can use the low pass filter here, but the low pass filter limits us to 30,000 hertz or 30k hertz, and in my opinion, that's not clean enough for some of the things we want to see, because automotive stuff happens relatively slow in the oscilloscope world. So that's why it's nice to understand how to set up your sample rates and how to get what you want to see on the screen. And if you have any aliasing, which is kind of what that looks like there, you know, as you can tell, there's more to this signal. It's being clipped. If we were worried about that, I still don't know how we can do that, but change the colors on there, but that's not what we want to do. See how it just changes? I'm not sure why. But you just have to be aware of that. There's some weirdness with all these tools, but so you can see I just changed that again, and I don't know why. I don't know what is going on there, but I believe that's a reference waveform color, but I don't know why it's letting me toggle it on and off. But I don't know. I'm still learning how to use this thing, so if I get that figured out, I'll let you know. But otherwise, that's a nice clean signal. Let's just look at our AC signal, or our charging ripple, and then I'll let you guys go, and you guys can keep your eye out. We'll play with this a little more later. So we're going to take our zoom off, sets us back to our sample rate, I'm going to go ahead and go back here. I'm going to turn on my AC coupling here, but I am going to turn my sample rate, well, yeah, I'm going to turn my sample rate up a little. So we're going to go in just a little bit to a 20-second window, and that's going to give us yeah, that's going to give us 2,500, if it would focus, 2.5 thousand samples per second, and a 50 second, oh no, I think it's a 20-second window. Yep, don't let me misspeak. 20-second window, 50,000 sample buffer at 2.5 samples per second gives us a 20-second window. So now we're going to start that and take a look at the AC ripple. So you can see that come in there, but we had this set way wrong for that. So let's get it down to, oh, there's a 100 millivolts per division. That's probably enough run time. We'll zoom in, go over here, and you can see our AC ripple looking really nice. You know, and if you wanted to zoom way in on this and see each event, we can do that. So let's go ahead and run the scope, and we're going to zoom in even more. So there's 200 milliseconds or 2 seconds in our buffer. And now we stop that, hit our zoom, and now we can zoom in and see every little detail if we really want to. So I just wanted to go over the basics with you. It's a pretty solid tool, pretty nice tool. There's some software nuances to figure out, and it takes a little bit of wrapping your head around how the sample rates work, but at least it gives you that information, which I can't say the same for other scan tool oscilloscopes, but that's how we get there. This thing is actually super powerful. It's just not super user friendly like all good powerful tools. You kind of got to know what you're doing first and then use the tool. So if you have one of these, I encourage you to take it out, play with it a little bit, get used to how it works, how it functions before you try to fix cars with it. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll do some more demos on this. If you guys have a tool like this and there's anything that you figured out that you can't figure out, you want me to go over, just leave it in the comments, and we'll do some playing and see what we can get figured out. So thanks for watching. This is really a pretty powerful tool for what it is and the price point. I think you could pick up this and a decent Phoenix tool for under $2,000 and have a pretty decent scanner scope setup. So but yeah, I'm pretty happy with it so far. It definitely takes a little bit of messing around, but and I'm not thrilled with touchscreen tools in general, but that's the world we live in, so that's what we're going to deal with. But otherwise, yeah, pretty rock solid tool. I'm going to see what we can do with it.